Chapter 19. The next morning, we headed to our meeting with the local Aniquitos. According to the directions, the trip would take about 30 minutes, but we doubled that to compensate for the unfamiliar area and parking. We still had plenty of time when we pulled into a parking garage attached to a tall office building and went inside. We're headed to the 14th floor. Devon checked the message from Bill with the information. The elevator door opened in front of a reception desk and waiting area. Apparently, the Aniquitos' offices took up the entire floor. My sensitive nose picked up the scents of several kindred. I couldn't get an accurate count with the unfamiliar pack scent, but there were at least a dozen. I took a seat while Devon spoke with the receptionist, then joined me. We waited patiently for someone to come for us, aware that we were early and it may be a while. It was still a few minutes before our appointment time when a tall woman with skin the color of caramel stepped into the reception area. Devon and Dominique? She spoke clearly but without raising her voice, and I cringed inwardly at my given name. Devon and I stood. "Here we are," Devon said. He waited while I followed her, then came behind me. I caught a whiff of her personal scent and knew she was another kindred. "Mr. Ridges is ready. If you'll follow me." She led us down a short hallway that opened into an average-sized room. It had a neat unmanned desk to one side and another door to one side of the desk. She led us past the desk to the door and knocked once before opening it. "The visitors from Arizona," she announced as we passed her on our way into the room. "Thank you, Veronica. That will be all." A deep voice came from one side of the large office. I followed the sound and found a large, squarely built black man making his way to his feet behind a large desk scattered with papers and a name plaque on the front edge reading, "Warren Ridges, CEO." There was another, even larger man standing near the wall to one side. I didn't have to catch their scents to know they were both kindred. This was the Aniquitos and the enforcer who served as his bodyguard. I remained silent, following Devon's lead. I'd never met with another Aniquitos, and I didn't want to accidentally insult anyone. "My secretary tells me you're visiting from Arizona." The Aniquitos moved around the desk to stand in front of us. "That you're part of Bill's pack." "Yes, sir," Devon said respectfully. "I understand that you're here on vacation?" I nodded. And Devon spoke again. "Yes, I was invited to a wedding here in town tomorrow." "Not kindred?" he asked as if he already knew. "No, sir. He's an army buddy." "And you felt the need to inform me of it. Why?" He seemed unhappy at having been bothered for something beneath his concern. "Just courtesy, sir. I wouldn't feel right entering another pack's territory without paying my respects to the Aniquitos." The large man nodded. "I appreciate that. There are many these days who wouldn't show the courtesy." The expression on his face softened a bit. "If you run into any trouble while you're visiting, please don't hesitate to let me know." "Will do, sir," Devon said. "What about you?" The Aniquitos turned to me. "You haven't said a word since you stepped in here. Are you afraid of me?" "No, sir, it's not that." "Then what is it?" "Well, sir, I'm still kind of new to all this, and I didn't want to accidentally do or say something that would be taken as an insult." "New to all what?" "Kitsune culture." A scowl formed on his face. "How can you be new to our culture?" "I was adopted, sir. I've only recently shifted and found out about all this." "Ah. How unusual." Devon smiled. "You may find, sir, that there's little that can be considered usual about Nickie." He wrapped an arm around my waist and pulled me against him. I frowned at him for the public display, but didn't say anything. The Aniquitos and his enforcer watched the two of us carefully, likely missing nothing. Bill told me to tell you something. I paused a moment, trying to remember the exact words. He said, "Tell that mutt that I'm still waiting for him to come down and go hunting with me." The Anikitos blinked, stunned briefly, before a smile spread across his face. The enforcer standing against his wall started to advance, unhappy with the way I'd disrespected his leader with the message. Devon stepped in front of me, shielding me from the much larger man, but before he reached us, the Anikitos stopped him. "Stand down, Bennett. She was just delivering a message." "But she disrespected you. She called you a mutt." "She just repeated what she was told to say." He chuckled. "Bill, huh? He must think quite a bit of you, to give you permission to use his first name. He's like a father to me, or a godfather. I've always known him." Bridges nodded. "That makes sense. I'm sorry to do this, but I'm running short on time. I have another appointment, one I can't be late for." "No problem, sir. We don't expect to take up your time, we just wanted to pay our respects," Devon said. "I appreciate it," the large man turned to me, "and tell Bill I'll be in touch about that hunting trip." I nodded, and Devon and I said our goodbyes and left, leaving the Anikitos to his appointment.